Welcome, everyone. My name is Dr. Nina Ha. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the director of the APIDA Center. And I am really excited because this is the beginning of APIDA Heritage Month. APIDA Heritage Month happens every April at Virginia Tech because in May, everyone's graduated and going away. And I wanted to also give a big shout out to Dr. Helen Schneider from the Department of History because that she is the reason why Eric Kim is here today. So we're really excited. Just to give you a little bit of a background, our learning lunches started in 2019 when I first came to Virginia Tech, and it was a way for really students in the beginning to really network and learn about APIDA faculty here at Virginia Tech. And then we expanded it to sort of campus partners who are bringing in guests, and also just anyone who, we want to feature and whatnot. So we're really fortunate and excited to have New York Times writer, reporter extraordinaire, author Eric Kim. And our only prompt for our guests are just please share your personal and professional journey into your career or field. We usually ask them to talk for about half an hour or so, and then this is a real time to really just ask all the burning questions that you have. And it's supposed to be a really just informal sort of way to get to know people in a low stakes, low stress environment. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nina. Yeah, thanks guys for coming. I'm not just any New York Times food columnist. I'm a cool New York Times food columnist. I really do love that we're all eating because I think I've learned one thing I've learned through my career is that talking over food, there's something about it that just really arrests everyone. And I think it's just such a human way to connect. And I don't know. Growing up, people would say stuff like that, and it'd always go in one ear and out the other because I always thought it was cheesy and whatever. And food was my job, but I think I think I really believe that now, and so I do always try to, in my personal life, create opportunities to have people over for dinner, and it's been a really fun week to get to commune with all of you. And that sounds, for some reason, when I say that, it reminds me of like youth group and praise team. And anyway, I think I'm gonna maybe start. I could start there actually. I'll start it from the beginning because my career path is very random, and I hope what you get out of the story is not, oh, I should do it exactly like that. I think my message is always, you just gotta kind of go where the wind blows and sort of, make plans, work really hard, but um, kind of listen to what the world is telling you sometimes, but also know when not to listen to the world. Um, you're in charge, you're the driver of your own. God, these cliches. Something about like being placed in a room with a bunch of most of you are college students, right? I know we have some PhDs and other people in here, but I'll try to I'll try to tell you about my experience. You know, when I turned 13 or 14, I was a huge fan of Michelle Branch. And so I begged my dad for a guitar, and then I locked myself in a room and wrote a song a week later, because I wanted to be the next Michelle Branch, the next like John Mayer. So I was like really working on music throughout my high school career, and I led the praise team at church, and any opportunity that had me like playing the guitar and singing in front of a live audience. And then that led me to New York City because when I was choosing colleges, it was between a Nashville school and a New York school, and I just wanted to go into top 40 pop rock, not country radio. So I was trying to be a recording artist, and I always like to start a talk with I moved to New York City to become a pop star because kind of like gets a chuckle out of people. But I think the more I think about my journey, it's kind of starts there because that's the first time I really was or considered myself a writer. I wanted to be a singer-songwriter. I expressed myself through lyrics and through love songs about relationships I didn't have because I was 14. But by the time I was 18, um, in New York City, I was playing a bunch of rock clubs, and dating very poorly uh, and trying to have as many experiences as possible so I could write about them. I don't recommend that. I don't think you should like have experiences so you don't like put yourself in situations so you could write about them. But it hasn't hurt. Um, and what's funny is I'm gonna flash forward to like right now, which is I'm a food writer and I write about food for a national publication. And I had a moment where I realized that I wasn't really living my life. I wasn't cooking dinner for friends. Like I was ironically just in the kitchen all the time developing recipes for the New York Times, and I was so obsessed with my job that I forgot to live my life. And I think that's important. Like as a college student, you shouldn't forget to live your life because you'll never get to do this again. You'll never get to be your age again, and you'll never get to be a college student again. Um, but once I realized that I got my stuff together and I think I realized that if I'm gonna write about life, which is what I do, I'm a memoirist, I'm a personal essayist, songwriter. I realized that I had to live a life first. So I think that has made my work better. I like to kind of go where the wind blows. I think I met Dr. Helen Schneider at an Asian Studies conference, which is really random because I'm not an academic professionally. Um, I'm a former academic, but I'm glad I said yes to all the invitations that led me here and it's a string of invitations. Like her friend, who was the president of that association of that conference, was a source in my story that I was writing about an ancient cookie. Um, so I think I think the point of this is just that the more I kind of found myself living my life and trying to deprioritize work because it's important to like for life to be first. Like I'm getting married later this year. I wasn't putting much energy into the wedding planning and my partner was a little bit like um we're both really busy, but I think he's much better at prioritizing sleep. We're talking about sleep. Sleeping is really important. Maybe when you're young, it won't catch up to you, but sleep is like the thing you should prioritize before you finish your essay or turn in your essay. Just plan on waking up early and doing the assignment or something, but get the sleep first. Sorry, I'm like rambling a little bit, but I think once I started doing that, I was able to find happiness easier, and I was able to sustain happiness, and my work got better because I had actual life experiences and I had met actual people and had deep conversations and I had uh I had more life in me and then the writing got better because it was just a little more textured and nuanced and I knew more. Okay, so you have the beginning, I'm a little like 14-year-old pop star, and then you have the end, I'm a 34-year-old um like food columnist slash writer. I have a collection of essays coming out. So um thing that those two things have in common is writing. And so I think I I think I used to think up until now that all of the career paths I went down and failed at, I used to think that those were wasted time or something. And I know that when I was in college, I was just always so eager to become a person and become a professional in something. And for me in college, that was I wanted to be an English professor. I was, I was like a pop star at night, but then during the day, I was really enjoying school. I really loved my English courses. I was an English major, and I kind of, I also interned at publishing houses because I was in New York City, and I really wanted to take advantage. I interned at a food media company, foodnetwork.com, because it was right down the street. And it's one of those things where it's like, why not? Like, if you guys want to, if you're interested in cooking, like we have a chef right here who makes the school's meals, like you should talk to him about an internship, maybe. Not to like volunteer his time, but I guess what I'm saying is like whatever's in front of you, you kind of take advantage, like this college is amazing. You have so many things, you have so many resources. I'd never had any kind of food studies or opportunity like that, even at NYU where I went to college. But anyway, all this to say, I worked really hard at school. And I realized maybe my sophomore year that I didn't need to do a fourth year. I could just finish in 3 years and also apply to PhD programs. So I got into Columbia and I was 20 years old. I wasn't even old enough to drink. And I was really proud of that. I was like, oh, I'm a hotshot, like young thing. And then once I got there, everyone was really mean to me. I was like, this is crazy. I was I was so popular and loved that before this. I was a pop star. I was a just like popular in that type name, pop star. Just kidding. And I kind of I struggled because everyone was so much older. There were these people who were, whether they were in the beginning of their academic careers or later, everyone was older than me. It took me maybe 10 years later to understand why that was and why it was important for them to be older to do that kind of work. Um, Basically, I enjoyed my time there. I loved being a student mostly. I love studying. So I was just trying to like extend that as much as possible. So the first 2 years of my PhD program were coursework, and I was TAing on the side, which was really fun. And then the third year was all about reading 100 books. And then at the end of the year, around this time of year, I'm doing an oral exam where I'm tested on all the books. But I was this 23-year-old by then who had never had a real job. I'd never spoken in public really. Well, I gave a speech in high school, but that was different because I was whatever. I basically I bombed the exam. I kind of froze, and I it was a very traumatic experience for me. It was maybe the first real trauma that resulted in a decade of depression and self-doubt. And you know, I had grown up a very, loved, overconfident little boy. My mom and my dad were very, good to me, and my mom was especially like a helicopter mom who like coddled me. So, which has its own issues that we're dealing with now. But but essentially, after I failed that exam, because I just couldn't speak. Like the irony is, it was like a room like this, where you're supposed to just speak about these books I apparently picked myself and loved, but um, I froze and I failed the exam, and they gave me an option of taking the exam again, or I could also leave with not just one master's degree, but two, because at the end of the third year at Columbia in the English department, you have a master's degree already from that first year, but after the third year, you get an MPhil if you do all the coursework and stuff. And everything other than that oral exam, I had passed with flying colors. And the but the thing that I maybe didn't have was a committee and professors who kind of mentored me. And like I think all my other colleagues were older, so they knew how to have the like build these relationships with these old curmudgeonly English professors, And I had never talked to an adult who was like mean to me before, and because I was always told that I was pretty and like smart. And sorry, I'm also trying to joke, but okay. But basically, that experience at Columbia was such an adult experience, and I wasn't an adult yet. I still don't feel like an adult, but definitely wasn't an adult then, and I wasn't equipped with the social skills or the maturity I think, to get the most out of the program that I could. I gave a lecture last night about this exam room, and it's a very compelling story. It got me my next book deal, which is that essay collection that comes out next year. Pays for my apartment. Like, it's like it was like a dramatic essay that I still really, believe is true. But after I read it last night, and every time I read it, I like think of something else to add because more time has passed and that wound has healed a little more.
Mm.
Because eventually I did drop out. I dropped out of the program and was floating in space and didn't know what I was doing with my life. Um, but after I gave the talk last night, had amazing conversations with lovely academics and other PhDs and people who had similar experiences. We kind of talked about like the hazing of academia and how it's because there's a scarcity mindset. There are only so many spots for English professors in the world. Um, and those old white men who are English professors in these departments, they're not going anywhere until they die. So, you know what I mean? So, and 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 I think that living as an academic sorry, I was gonna make a joke, but I basically realized that there's always more to the story, and I think I need to add a paragraph or two to the essay about my part in it. And I think my part was just I wasn't ready. And I have a friend who actually graduated with her PhD. She was my best friend at Columbia. She graduated with her PhD in English. So talented, so smart, so cool. I think she did better because she took a gap year or two, like between her college and grad school experience, in between her high school and college experience. She was a woman, so she like was more emotionally intelligent than me, and at the time especially, and she just like knew her feelings and knew how to navigate the world better, I think. And she had traveled more, and I don't know. I'm trying to like share as many different experiences as possible, so you know that like mine is just like my own, but even she got a tenure track position at Yale. Like she got an amazing job. And after the first year there, she was like, "Oh my God, this place sucks. Like English professors suck." Or like at least in these like really toxic environments. Not every, academic space is like that. You have to find the good ones. Because I also had a friend named Margarita who, sorry, I don't know why I said it in that accent. She didn't get into the tenure track position, but she left with a master's degree. And she was a woman of color, and that's like relevant here too, because she didn't get to finish her PhD at Columbia, but that was a huge blessing. Like I was the canary, but she ended up at Rutgers and was a superstar and had like professors who were super um not just supportive, but also did like it cared about the work that she did, which was what did she do? Sorry, I don't remember. It was something, about marginalized literature probably, and because she was Puerto Rican and she was a star, and then she got like this badass job at Rice University, I think. Like she got a tenure track position and is thriving. And I think about all the different paths and the paths that what I learned was that anyone who was in my class in that English department did not do well after, or at least did not end up going into the field of English academia. Even like one of the superstars, Victoria, I looked her up on LinkedIn. She's a librarian now, which is amazing, an amazing job. And like, I guess the joy that I found in finding out what all my classmates ended up doing is they found other lives that made them much happier. And it took a really long time for me being a food writer. I started at Food Network, worked my way up. I learned a lot. I learned how people click on the internet because I was like a managing editor for foodnetwork.com, which was at the time one of the biggest food publications. It still is, I think. Allrecipes.com is always number one, but Food Network was number two. And so I have millions of page views of data. Every day, millions of people come to the site. So it was really fun to like direct people to specific things, through my writing, through my editorial. Like, the writing was like 100 easy weeknight dinners that will blow your socks off. I didn't write that, but trying to make it like actually sound like cool and good. But also, um, as like an academic, like I think I was really, and as a researcher, I was really interested and nosy about what people were clicking in terms of meals and food. And like for instance, I grew up Korean American, but so Easter for us was really just going to church and coming home, really long mass, sleeping through it, and then coming home. But I learned that a lot of Americans roast a ham, so this weekend I think ham sales really go up around this time. And I was like, that's crazy. That's for Christmas, I thought. But apparently people eat ham and they also do creamy potatoes. I guess it's like a classic, like very European thing. But I guess what I'm saying is it was fun to learn about people because I think ultimately that's why I like literature. That's why I like novels. I liked reading about other people's lives. And I used to think maybe that I just naturally grew up with empathy, but I think the novels taught me empathy probably, in addition to the songwriting and the imagining myself in like love scenarios and stuff like that. But creativity was an outlet, but also like a way to grow my my empathy for the world. Like I don't know if you guys realize it, but like some people don't care about other people, and those people are bad. They're probably like hurt on the inside, but I think caring about other people, at least it's also a luxury, I think. I think it's a luxury to have empathy and to care about people. But ultimately I had a job that paid, pretty bad salary, but paid my rent. And I was able to figure out my next step. And in doing so, I learned a lot of things. Like my job was to literally run the recipes from the editors on the opposite end of Chelsea Market to the other side where the editorial was, where my cubicle was. And I was able to but yes, 30 minutes, right? I was able to my job was to upload the recipes to the website. It was basically data entry. And I was a former Columbia English PhD candidate. I was pretty cocky and smug, and um, I think that job at first I was like, I worked so hard to get to the top of a field, only to end up at the bottom of another one. But that was kind of great because, and I had a lot of supportive women, really cool, talented, beautiful. Looks don't matter, but it helps when someone's like really beautiful, like your boss. And I was like, wow, you're so pretty. But also nice and kind. And anyway, sorry, she's really talented, and she was supportive. She was like my mentor at the time, and really big sister figure. And um, she actually is the one who helped me after I dropped out of Columbia. We had lunch, and I read about it in my cookbook, actually, Korean American. There's this spam and perilla kimbap, like a rolled, like a rice roll. Um, and it mimics the salmon skin roll with like radish greens that which is so good. It was so good that Morimoto did at his restaurant, which was right under Food Network at the time. Sorry, this is all backstory, but it was just that one person. I always love the Lady Gaga meme. It's like there could be 100 people in the room, or I don't know. Yeah, 100 people in the room. 99 of them say no. There's one person. Sorry, I don't know the meme, but you guys know what I'm talking about. But Michelle was that one person, and she taught me that people can be kind and empathetic, and that was really the life lesson for me because the rest of my life since then, I tried to find people like Michelle. And when people weren't like Michelle, I'd be like, "Ooh, you're not like Michelle. You're ugly and mean." Sorry, just kidding. But truly, like, pretty people can be mean too. But the man, I still kept running into people like my English professors from Columbia. Like, I kept running into like assholes. And it took me a long time to understand. Oh, you're like just a really hurt person, but also you're threatened by me and you're jealous. And like, there's all these things that you sort of realize. You never want to be the guy who's like they're just jealous, but you have to like I've just like learned that like when people are mean, it has nothing to do with you. Um, and so I was able to like rise in my career despite these people because I knew how to avoid them. I was like, oh, I'm getting out of here because you guys suck. And so eventually, um, I got a job at Food 52. Um, and I wanted to be there because there was this guy named Mayuk Sen who wrote beautifully. He was this superstar. He had just come out of Stanford. I mean, undergrad. We're all so young. Um, he wrote amazing essays that were like cultural studies, historical studies of figures, usually women, lost women figures in history, who made a huge difference in food. And one of those essays about Princess Pamela, this amazing figure in New York, he he got a James Beard Award for that. And I was trying to I was trying to find meaning. Like I felt like a failure as a food, network employee. Like I thought I thought I was a failure. So I was trying to like find the thing that would make me feel fulfilled and and so I went there. I was like, I want to be like this guy and write really cool stuff that is academically rigorous, intellectually stimulating, but useful um and publicly published, have a byline under my name, and it was like this new path that I saw. And so I applied for a job there, and actually, you know what? Actually, the job interviews are really important. I'll just first say that my job interview with Michelle was basically that lunch at Morimoto. And it wasn't even a job interview. It was me just like asking her for advice because I had interned with her colleague before in college. Um, but I asked her, has she ever failed at something miserably? And she told me her greatest failures, and I won't share them here because it's her own, but it's cool to see someone in front of you who's this superstar. She was, the VP of editorial. She's like the top editor of that foodnetwork.com, which like millions of, people go to it every day. And she's cool and pretty and smart. Um, but her failures like sounded like mine, and I was like, wow, you really messed up. Fell on your face. That's awesome. And so, that job interview got me the Food Network job. And then the next one, I applied for Mayuk's old job. He left his staff writing position. I actually got the job, but the people when they were interviewing me, they were like, I think they asked for my salary, and like I said a number that was too high. I always asked for a good number. I think I asked for a number that was higher than a staff writing position. And so they were like, we actually think we might like you might be better as a senior editor. They never ended up hiring that staff writer position, but I did as a senior editor have a little more power, and it was fun to help them with their editorial vision. And I edited a column called My Family Recipe for like a good two years, and that recipe was a bunch of personal essays about food, which was kind of like perfect for me. And you know, I think they probably gave it to me because I was like the emotional, sappy guy. But basically, it was a way for me to practice being an editor. But I'd also been an editor because I was a writing teacher in college, in at Columbia. I was teaching students how to write essays. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is like, do you see these threads? Like they're all related. You don't know that they're related till later, but they're related. And I ended up also writing a column. I started a column there about cooking for one because I wanted to build a name for myself. When you're an editor, you're sort of behind the scenes, but when you're a staff writer, you obviously get the byline and all the credit. But I remember feeling like, just looking at the time. I remember a food writer at the time, John Bonet, and another guy, John Birdsall. There were two other writers whose work I really admired, whose work was really rigorous. I think they also had awards. I just got dinner with them once, and I asked them to dinner. I was like, I didn't say I'll buy you dinner, but I bought them dinner. And it was kind of oh yeah, buy like food writers dinner because they're poor. Anyway, sorry, just kidding. But basically, they get the advice they gave me was really great. It was like it doesn't matter where you write, just write anywhere regularly, like write regularly. And that advice was so cool because I wrote weekly for a long time, this cooking for one column about this devastating like long distance relationship I was in. So I was kind of using the blog as therapy and whatever, which is I don't recommend, but it was practice for me. And over time I built up a readership, and so people started to come to me specifically for because of this writing. And then I built up a fan base, and then and then I wrote an essay for that My Family Recipe column about coming out to my parents over kimchi fried rice. And it was like maybe one of the first times I was like practicing really like personal essay writing and having a recipe at the end. It's like a classic form. Um, and the essay was really popular. It went viral, at least in 2018 standards or whatever. It was pretty viral, and an editor at Penguin Random House read it and started reading my column, and one day asked me to get breakfast. And I was like, Penguin Random House? It's like they publish John Steinbeck and stuff casually. And one day it's going to be called like Penguin Random House, Simon Schuster and Knopf, and it's going to be like a huge like conglomerate. Just kidding. I think publishing is doing fine, but um, basically I got breakfast with her, and we really hit it off. She was another Michelle, very similar to Michelle, actually, totally the same, actually, same age, same prettiness. They all live in like the hip part of Brooklyn, but most importantly, writerly and readerly. Like they read a lot, which meant they had a lot of empathy, right? Um, and and then turns out they go to the same yoga class once I like introduced them. Anyway, they sorry, they both she asked me like, I love your stuff. Like, what book do you want to write? What books do you want to write? And I was so excited because I'd been thinking about it for a long time. And I was like, all right, this. And she was like, cool, we can do all those, but let's start with maybe the Korean one because it's kind of like a good like introduction debut to the world. And I thought it'd be easy. Unfortunately, it was very hard, but obviously it worked out. It turned out great. But um, that was my book deal. And then, but even before getting that deal, she was like, well, you kind of need an agent to, it's like not a traditional way that it happens. Usually you get an agent first, and then the agent pitches you to publishing houses. But this was like a direct, like scouting. And then it's like a dream scenario, because I was already like a figure in the industry, a very niche, small industry, food writing. Um, and she was also a former columnist and writer. And so, it's like like-minded people finding each other and being like, hey, do you want to do this work? And I'm like, oh, cool, sure. But basically, she introduced me to the literary agent that she thought I would like, and that person is my agent now today. And that woman also was reading my column, and she's like, "Oh, Eric, yeah, he's the only one I like there." Sorry, I shouldn't have said that, but she was like, she was already a fan. So, and then it was just like like a domino effect of these events, which I don't know, like I don't know that it happens to everyone, but I think the reason it happened to me is because I just like after Columbia, I just was myself. And once I was myself and I wrote about myself, but also I didn't try to be anyone else. I think that's when people started noticing. And I think that's when I started maybe shining, or that's when I started to grow some self-confidence and the writing was getting stronger and clearer. And it's just so interesting. How I hate this word, but the vibe attracts the tribe. Is that a phrase that you guys know? Anyway, whatever. Um, I basically got that book deal, and then Food 52 laid me off because it was the pandemic and because that place was also really toxic, unfortunately. And then uh, I was free. I was free to write for other publications, and my eyes were set on the New York Times because to me that was like a number one. And it was on a post-it note that I had written for myself back at the Food Network job. The first day I started there, I wrote, the story sounds so cheesy, but like when you're young, you kind of like try to create these like moments for yourself just like, to make them happen. Like it's like dreaming, right? I think dreaming's important because dreaming isn't just like fantasizing about something. It's like really setting up the dynamo block so that, one day it'll like you'll knock one over and you guys know what dominoes are? Anyway, sorry. Okay. I'm really not that much older than you guys. But I don't know why dominoes would be an age thing. Sorry. Okay. So basically, I'm gonna finish this up real quick. I I remember writing on that post-it note, three companies. I was like New York Times. I think Bon Appetit was the second one because it was like really popular at the time. Not so much anymore, but and then I don't remember what the third one was, but um, I don't know. After I left Food 52, I emailed the food editor at the New York Times, and she responded in 20 minutes, and she really liked my pitch. And then she gave me that first assignment. And what was really exciting was years later, once I applied for a job, and to be honest, I actually didn't even get the job. I usually don't tell the story because I don't, there's always the risk that it sounds like I'm bragging, but I didn't get the job. It went to a much more talented, more emotionally intelligent, beautiful, pretty woman named Yolande Kamalafe. And she got the job because she really deserved it. But they wanted to talk to me more. And so they more interviews, and exactly 7 days later they offered me another job. So they took a week to like go back to their people and find more money to hire me with Yolande. Isn't that cool? Like they weren't originally going to, but they just really wanted me. And that's really the lesson, I think, like in this attention economy, and like it's really hard to stand out. Just if you like just try to focus on being a quality candidate, like just working on yourself and being really awesome, people will come to you. And I thought that was like a life lesson that I'm like actually just like now realizing, but pretty exciting. So I started that job, and I guess the rest is history. The rest is history. Yeah. And on the job, I guess I'll just say that every day I'm kind of aware that all of my experiences in the past, all the traumas as well, but all the experiences, researching, being an academic, learning how to write an essay. I mean, the essay form is the thing that pays my bills now, which I always joke about. It's like ironic that I still am like a college student at heart, or a high school student at heart, like procrastinating on an essay and then writing it the night before, and then hopefully getting an A, and then the rush of that, and then. But actually, I think what I learned is that writers just write like that. I think it's like an ADHD thing. Anyway, I think all the skills that I had in the past made me unique. Like most food writers weren't former pop star literary English PhD dropouts. I was also like an anonym or pseudonymously like casually a famous ASM artist, like like on YouTube, because food and like I was like first generation, I would say. I was an internet kid, and this collection of essays that's coming out next year. This is not a plug, but it's like the theme is it's like it's about the internet and how it's helped me to really just like find some really weird, unique avenues of self-expression. And I think I understand now that all those things accumulated to culminated in this very weird job I have, which is I create recipes so other people can make them in their homes. And then I write essays that either make people laugh or cry, ideally both. And then I get to just like throw dinner parties and I sell books sometimes. And I visit college campuses, which I really like doing because it reminds me of where I came from. That's my career story, and I think it's a very weird one. But I also think if you ask anyone their career story, it's going to be weird. Everyone's story is strange. And so you have to find what yours is. That's what I personally think. Thanks for listening. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Now it is time to open it up to the audience. I know people have probably have burning questions, comments. This is your chance to shine.
So I have a question. So you said that to kind of get noticed nowadays, right? Then it helps to like have like a kind of established thing or something along those lines, right? And so in kind of 2016, what are some of the better venues for that? Is it like Substack or like YouTube or what?
I like the Freudian slip of you saying 2016
Oh, 20.
instead. What happened then? Just kidding. I'm like a psychotherapist now. 20, yeah, in 2026, yeah, it's really hard. I think you guys will know better than I will, but um, I think, yeah, yeah, isn't this the theme in history? Just like using the technology that's available to you, going where the people are. I think the only reason I don't have a Substack is because I write for the Times and um, I don't know. I kind of, I guess I consider that my platform. But yes, having a platform, even if that platform only gets like 5 readers a week or something, um, I always say that actually I built my when I applied for that Food Network job, I was not a food writer. I had no experience other than being like an intern who worked hard and made a reputation for being like a good employee, Oh, always be a good employee. You never know like who's gonna give you your next job. Um, some people really mess that up. They just like, yeah, if someone's paying you, you should just try to do a good job. Anyway, unless they're assholes. But I really need to reel it in the rambling. Okay, so I think Instagram was becoming popular then, and people were really posting their food on Instagram. You remember that? People would put static photos of like really bad like food pictures. Um, I was doing that, but also using up the entire caption, which took 2,000 characters or word. No, 2,000 characters, I think. So I would always try to hit the limit. And I was practicing writing. Big part of this is I had influences. I had like Nigella Lawson's writing I really liked. I loved, all the literature that I was reading, obviously. I was an early 20th century Americanist. I liked Hemingway and Faulkner and Fitzgerald and all those guys. Um, I was writing about food in these captions and kind of practicing. And I also sometimes like transported the recipes to the blog. I had a blog. Um, and so when I applied to that Food Network job, even though I wasn't like a published writer, I had these writing samples and I had evidence of me being a creative person publicly on the page. And it wasn't just for the professionalization. So yeah, writing on Substack's a great idea. But it wasn't just that, it was that it was practice for myself. Like I became like that was my early practice trying to become a food writer and find my voice. And eventually, of course, the Food Network job and the Food 52 job. But um I think, and even the New York Times job, I consider like journalism school. I didn't walk in being a journalist. I was just a writer, but I learned those skills, those hard skills, and it was fun to even like learn the softer skills, like which can be hard. It's like the craft of writing, like getting to like focus on one piece for a whole month. Like I really obsess over like the sentences and the trying to like get better at my craft. And I think identifying what your craft is at all is kind of hard. Some of us have multiple, but obviously like the world has told me that mine are cooking and writing. I'm trying to get better at gardening and like other stuff. But it's fun to know that you'll get better at it the more you do it. And so I love knowing that the more I write, the better I'll get at it. Like that's pretty exciting. It's like this idea that there's an infinity leveling up that can happen in whatever thing that you choose. Um, so I think, yeah, I don't know. I think it's about going where the people are, and I know it kind of like it sucks now because people use Instagram for such annoying things, but and if you have the energy and the literacy, I think a lot of you must have the emotion, like the not just the emotional cultural literacy to know like what people will like linger on TikTok or Reels, short form video, I should say. Um, if you learn how to like do that video stuff, and then you kind of put your face in front of the camera, and let's say you're talking about your like dissertation work, like 20th century American literature, whatever. Like if I think there are plenty of like people who build a platform for themselves, that way. And I thought about this recently. Someone asked me, I promise my answers won't all be monologues, but someone asked me, a first year graduate student here asked me, like my relationship to, you know, popularity or getting recognized. And I think I didn't understand it at first, but now I see that it's a form of power. And I don't want to say that because most people are really bad with power, like they use it for evil, which is like the lesson of all Marvel films, I guess. But I think unfortunately, like the popularity is just like direct evidence of your in a capitalist society of your like draw or pull or marketing like leg or something. And so I think once I started to become more realistic and I knew that like, okay, if I have to like become popular get to be like successful in a certain way, then I'm gonna make sure to be really good at the thing I do instead of popular for popular sake, which is how a lot of TikTokers are maybe. Um, Sorry, this is a real tangent. I'm gonna stop talking, but I think I'm talking about TikTok because I think that's your generation's version of like how to gain some cultural capital. I should have said cultural capital. That's a form of power, right? Like cultural capital does anyone know what that means? Can you define it for me? Because I don't really know.
I mean, cultural capital is the idea that what you have to say about culture or what you could possibly contribute to culture, or just the relationship that you might have with culture, could then accumulate and lead up to something else. And so you have the capacity to build upon yourself in a sustained manner. And so if you say, I have a lot of cultural capital, maybe you have like multiple projects that you kind of all have the same thread through them. If you have a really unique perspective that says something that people really want to hear, maybe you just like certain things that could be brought from like a certain margin to a more mainstream.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've never heard it described that way. Yeah. I always think of cultural capital as like soft power, and soft power is more, people always say that's more powerful than hard power. So I think making yourself indispensable in whatever form you can in your field is a really good idea. Yeah, I think that's my answer. I might keep my answer shorter, I promise. Oh, yeah. Hi. Yeah. Also, sorry, I haven't been looking at you.
So I'm Silas Castanelli. I'm a professor, an assistant professor here. I really loved your talk last night. I was on Zoom, so thank you. I was wondering if you could, so as someone who also went through academia, you get so accustomed to saying no to yourself and to hold yourself back and to wait until other people tell you it's time to do something. So I was wondering what helped you to start to say yes
Wow.
to yourself, to other people, to opportunities, like when you get so accustomed to thinking that no is the answer. And then you were like, I'm gonna break from that. Like, yeah, so could you tell us like how you were able to start saying yes to yourself?
Oh, that's so beautiful. You guys are getting some good stuff early in your careers. Wow, that's real. To be honest, for me, I guess it's a gradual process, but that's something I've only started to realize. Because this collection of essays is me like mining the traumas of my 20s, actually. And so I think it's only really like recently, last 2 or 3 years that I've started to see that I was saying no to myself a lot. And even now, I even now I get opportunities, like big jobs that sound scary, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I've never done that. I don't know if I can. Um, and then now I'm able to catch myself because I have a future fiance who loves me and who's very like not a future fiance, future husband. And I have like I've 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 been in therapy, and I know like which specific pill like helps me with my ADHD. I think I'm able to like quell the voices a little bit, and even when they do come back at night, like the depression and the self-doubt and all the things that started developing after my Columbia failure. Not to blame everything on, other people. It's like you want to like take accountability for yourself, or at least that's what they say in therapy. But that's just kidding. But I think I've always it's kind of cool to go through something so horrible like that and traumatizing and something that takes 10 years to mend. It's nice to go through that because the next time something hard happens to you, you know that you've already survived it. So I think every time I get an assignment or a job that seems really hard, I have to step back and think, wait, why are they coming to me for this? And I try to say yes, and I try to make room in my life. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have to like pause this. I'm gonna have to like, get a dog sitter. I have to like, and um, and it's really nice because now I know that when something's scary and I'm scared to do it, that's when I know I have to do it. It's like this annoying thing where I have this nothing worth doing is easy. I think that's something that someone told me once, and I thought that was really helpful because, you could live your life doing the easy thing, but if you really go for the thing you want, you'll be surprised at how, I don't know, not that how little it'll take to get there, but you'll be surprised at, you know, uh, uh, you'll be surprised at what will happen if you kind of just let yourself grow a little bit. And every time I go through a really difficult week where I'm like, wow, I didn't think I would get through that. I just submitted like 3 recipes, blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying to overwork yourself, but when I find myself at the end of a week like that, I'm like, wow, I just had a stretch experience. I just really grew, and it feels pretty cool. And and that growth mindset is something that maybe I think you lose over time, like as you get older, maybe. And I think I'm hoping to continue to remind myself whenever I feel like stagnant to sort of make myself scared again. Being scared is really, really great. Yeah.
Um, you've mentioned your ADHD a few times over the past few days.
Yeah.
I'm in neurodivergent research and advocacy. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk about the experience of working in such a writing career that is deadline heavy and also navigating attention issues like that. If
Yeah.
you have any like of your like best advice, or I guess like, or like maybe even like talk about like the worst parts.
Yeah. Again, I think everyone's different, but what was really comforting to learn is that, and annoyingly, I learned this 2 years in. It took a long time. I started to talk to my colleagues more, and people like Pete Wells and Melissa Clark, and like really, really talented, cool people who have been doing this for decades. Um, one thing I learned is that we all have attention issues, like most writers do, and it's this funny thing where uh learning to like use it as a superpower kind of, right? So like I think I know deep down that um my ADHD, like if I don't complete an assignment and I feel myself like falling back or feel the pressure of an editor who's not as emotionally intelligent, doesn't know how to like coddle me so that they get the best work out. Just kidding. They they I noticed that depression starts to sink in, and then self-doubt, and then it becomes this horrible cycle. And as soon as I turn it in, I feel like it lightens up. But I know that. So now what I do is it happens still sometimes, but what I do is I just make sure to I know not to like beat myself up leading up to the 2 or 3 days before, to be honest, 1 or 2 days, 24 to 48 hours before the deadline, and giving myself another 24 hours after that. That's my like little thing. Because I know that it won't, I know that it will, when it comes out, it'll come out in 2, 3 hours. Like the actual writing session is very short, for me personally. But but it means that for a whole month leading up to that, I'm interviewing people, I'm developing the recipe for that piece. I am cooking the recipe over and over, eating it a lot. I'm like going out in the world and finding other examples of that dish. So I have like this database of like information so that when I get to the desk, it's like it can't wait to come out. So like that's what I do. And usually if I don't do that the really slow prep that, is fun, to be honest. It's fun to just be like, Friday afternoon, I'll take this book called Chocolate off the shelf and read about chocolate. And then actually I did a chocolate covered strawberry story for Valentine's Day, and it was really it wasn't a leisurely month because I had all this other stuff going on, but I put in the work before the actual writing. Like the writing was really quick, but the work was going to Jack Torres's chocolate factory and like watching him. Yeah, he taught me how to like temper the chocolate, and then I was also eating a lot of chocolate covered strawberries. I went on a chocolate tour with my partner, you know, invoiced it to the Times, and it was and I read a lot about chocolate, and on top of it, the research department helped me find the original family who invented the chocolate covered strawberry in Chicago. And so I was able to, the mother who invented it passed away, but I was able to talk to her son, and then during that whole conversation, like hearing about his mom's life and his life, and I was able to go to my piece and be like, wow, I have a lot here. I need to put it down, and then the editing happens and it gets published, and so I don't know. In a way, maybe like I used to worry that I could never be a staff writer, but I think maybe staff writing is a good job for writers with ADHD. I also sometimes think that most writers have ADHD, like you're a writer because of that.
It's actually very common, in
Yeah,
these fields,
right?
for people to be neurodiverse because you
Yeah.
get to work like within your own head and like do, like, because you said you know yourself, so you're able to, within your own work, keep yourself regulated.
Yeah.
And with these types of jobs, even with the deadline being like the source of stress, without it being like a super office setting, you get to help yourself. So
Yeah.
I'm like, I think it's really interesting that you like know that about yourself and are able to regulate that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think it was a form of like fight or flight, but but ultimately learning like what actually does work for me. Yeah. And yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I have one question online, if that's okay, and
Yeah, of
then
course.
get the next question. One question online said, one commented question is, thanks so much for sharing all this with us. You made the comment about some great bosses that they read a lot, which meant that they had a lot of empathy. I think that's true, and I worry about statistics that show reading has declined dramatically in the US. Any suggestions for fitting regular reading into a busy life, or any suggestions of favorite books to start with for young people who may not do any pleasure reading?
Ooh. Yeah, literacy is at a steep decline in our country. It's not a joke. It's something I noticed during my like 5-year tenure at the Times, because we get a lot of comments, and I have a lot of data from like the world, comments coming at me, whether through DMs on Instagram or whatever. And I've found that people have more and more trouble understanding the actual sentences. It's really sad. And the recipes themselves, they can't like follow them anymore. And it's really sad. It's because writing is my life's work, but I've actually had moments where I wanted to just quit and become an English teacher in high school so I can like catch it earlier or something. I don't know. But the reading is really important, and I struggle with it sometimes, but I mean, this is me. I'm 21 up, but I do like to go to a bar by myself and read. Like it's my way of just having a little break. And and I like reading. Oh, also it helps my ADHD because like the noise and it's white noise for me. Um, but there's a book that I like recommending to people. I have not gotten to the end, so I apologize if it has content that maybe. Well, I don't know. You guys are old enough. It's but the reason I want you to read it is because it's a beautifully written book, like really really clean, perfect, sparse language from a very emotionally intelligent woman. It's called Strangers, and it's by Belle Burden. And some of you may have even seen it, but it was like a #1 bestseller. It's been on the list for a while because it's quite good. It's like a really intricate. I think it's a really perfectly written but again, saying as someone who's only read the first like 100 pages, but yeah, I think that one's really good right now. If you want to like be in the conversation, like the contemporary world, literary world is talking about Strangers by Bell Burden. But if you're interested in food writing, and if you want to feel like you're reading without feeling like you're reading, or it's if you want to read without feeling like you're reading, it's Nigel Lawson's Feast is a book that was my Bible for a long time. It's really heavy, but I carried it with me to work every day, had it next to me on my desk. It's not encyclopedic, but it is a each chapter is a different feast, part of a different culture. Like she's a Jewish British woman, but she has this section about Eid. She writes really emotionally, intelligently about like Georgian feasts. And so for me, as a new food writer, it's actually a really great lesson, and or it was a really great model for how to write about other cultures and cuisines that aren't your own with empathy and with yeah, with like nuance. And because cultural appropriation was like a big conversation in the last few years, but um that book is so beautifully written that I would say it's the thing that made me want to become a food writer, to be honest. So that one's good.
I'm gonna stop you there because we're almost at time and I do want one last
Yeah.
question. So if you can make it brief.
Oh.
So thank you.
Oh, okay, cool. First off, I do want to introduce myself. I'm Avia. I'm a senior studying data science. Also, my biggest dream growing up was being a recipe developer. I was obsessed with the Food Network. So that's really awesome to hear about your story. I think growing up, I heard from many people who develop their own recipes, write their own cookbooks. And I feel like from the Asian community, I don't know how you feel about this, but I want to get your thoughts of, does it feel like sometimes you're boxed in to kind of represent your ethnicity through your recipes? And so like, like the recipes you have, you feel like you're being pushed to represent your.
I'll be really quick. My editor told me right when I started at the Times that I'm not hired to do the Korean recipes, but that's why I'm the one who pitches them because I'm interested intellectually. The problem I get with that, expectation culturally is from the public. It's always other Koreans who are like, I'm Korean and that's not Korean. And that's kind of annoying, but it's like some noise that I have to drown out. But then there's also, of course, all the white people who are saying, well, I've been to Korea and this isn't how I have kimchi. And it's really annoying. But
Yeah.
but that's natural, I think, if you're not white. It's like a natural thing. And I think that's why I'm always trying to develop recipes that teach people about not just the food, but about the culture and the cuisine and the people. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll conclude the formal
Yeah.
and formal part,
Yeah.
and now is the time to just talk and kvetch, and there are cupcakes and brownies, so please have yourselves as well.
Happy to answer any other questions,
Everybody.
but I'll be eating.
Thank you for answering.
Yeah.